All right, welcome to Bouqui'S Place. It's going to be an amazing day. You know what we do here. We don't talk about the glitz or the glam. We talk about the grit and the grind. We bring your favorite people to be with you, to share their stories with you so that you can see that if OC went through that, I have no excuses. And today, I have in the house the one and only OC the Great.
Bookie, I've been here from the jump. I just didn't know how to join you on the thing. I am so sorry. Like, I've been here. I actually have been.
OC, OC. How are
Hi,
you, my
Bookie.
darling?
I'm very well, thank you. This is an honor. Thank you so much for having me on here.
OC, first from the jump, I am sorry about misspelling your name. I have
Nah.
always told you that since 25 years ago. I promise you, but I
No, that's okay.
apologize.
No worries at
How are
all. Like,
you?
this is why I had to play it off like, look, at least the identity is still the most important thing. And then if people know that, then that's okay.
How are you, OC?
I cannot complain. We're great. We're good. We're working. We're pushing. We're doing what we can, basically.
Wow. So wait, you asked me how you will join the live. Is this your first live?
Believe it or not, this is my first live ever. Like, I've never been on Instagram Live. Like, I'm telling you, Bookie, you're
Can
the
we give it
first
up for
time.
Bookies Place? Can we give it up for Bookies Place? We bring people out of darkness. Wow.
And because I'd never done it, so I didn't exactly know. And so I'd gone to my own live, and then some people on there had said, "Well, you have to either get her to invite you, or," and I was, because I'd been here from when you started, and I heard you talking, and I left a note and
Oh,
said, "Oh, I'm
really?
here." Oh yeah, yeah, I'd been here.
Oh,
I had.
wow.
Yeah, I'd left you a message.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for coming to Bookie's Place. And
No worries.
we are, for lack of better words, oh, I can't say it on air, but this is your first time of being on live. I was going to use a word that was not exactly wholesome. But
It's okay. No worries.
all right, so let me tell you, we always have 1 hour, and I guarantee you, it's never even enough. So let me tell you
Right.
what we do here.
Okay.
This season has showed us that more than anything, we need an identity. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
An identity
Yeah.
that's not just tied to sugar flakes and candy floss. We need something
Right.
that's grounded. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? A virus
Right.
came and took your identity. I mean, like people that had their, identity tied to being a banker, to being a lawyer, and in a second, it was just taken from them. And now they have to
Right.
start from scratch. Imagine that they
Right.
have to start from scratch. They have to like try to figure it out and all
Right.
that. So a lot of people, especially here in America, a lot of people are committing suicide and all that. So what we do
Mm.
is, in this place, we bring people like you to share your story so that they know
Right.
that, oh my God, I love OC. I've seen him on TV. So he went through that and he pulled through. Oh my gosh, I have no excuses. So it's
Right.
about ordinary people in their ordinary lives doing
Right.
extraordinary things. We
Right.
watched your
Right.
movies. I mean, it was like the day they born you. You just started acting. They born you with it like when, and you talk to me like that. So we don't talk about the glitz or the glam. We talk about the grit and the grind, the times you second guessed yourself, the times you thought that, you know what, I can't do this anymore, just to encourage people, practically equip
Right.
people. Listen, this is how you do life. So when I
Right.
show up now, I hand the microphone over to you. You tell us your story, and we flow with
Right.
your tide. Wherever you go, we go. So I'm going to sit back, get my popcorn. Welcome to this place.
Okay. So, I mean, I've been doing this whole acting thing since 2001. So that's upwards of 19 years now and counting. But it was acting, and then before that, it was music, and I was pursuing, as you would know, I was pursuing music
Yes.
from the jump. But then it was the issue of combining the acting and the music, and it was difficult to do both of them. And I really thought it was the music that was going to get me to where I am today. But then the Nigerian music scene was also changing at the time. And at the time, you know, the acting was working out for me, basically. And then it was also easier to control because it's like someone hires you and you get paid, but you know how much money you have to invest in music. You know, so it's like you have to, you know, churn out a lot of change to make music happen. But then with the acting, they hire you, you get paid, and then you have some change to sort of do something else for yourself,
Yeah.
you know. But through that entire journey, again, I guess the first stop was being saddled with two great talents that I could do, because I could do both of them really well. And it was just
OC,
a case of, yeah,
you will
okay,
backtrack to
great,
where you were
okay.
born, family.
Oh,
We want to know
you want to
you.
take it right back. Oh, I see,
Yeah,
okay.
we're taking it all the way back.
Okay, great. Okay, so I have two siblings. I was born and raised in Orile Gomu. I don't know how many people know where that is, but that is, you know, I mean, it was a decentish area when we were growing up. I don't know if it still is, but I was born and raised in Orile Gomu. I lived there for 11 years, went to boarding school, and then moved first. Like, I have an older brother and a younger sister. A pretty small family. We had really rough times growing up. Yeah, I mean, my dad was around up until a time, and then he lost his job, and things got really difficult for all of us. And my mother worked hard. Like, my mother went through, you know, a really difficult time trying to raise three of us because we're all in secondary school at the time, you know, and myself and my younger sister were in a boarding house. You know, so we had a really difficult, I would say upwards of 5 to 6 years. Well, okay, my dad lost his job when I got into, I think that was GS2 or so, and was out of a job till he passed just before I was going to SS3. So for that like 4 to 5 year period, it was a very difficult time for us. And my mother was a civil servant who's retired now. So it was difficult to raise three children on civil servant salary. And we lived with my aunt and my uncle at one time where it was like 12 to 13 people in the one house. And I mean, my uncle, his wife, his four kids, you know, two nannies, myself, my siblings, my mom, and at one point my dad, you know, and it was like a 3 bedroom apartment, you know. So we had, you know, that season as well. And then I guess when my dad got tired of, you know, the thing that happens with men and with our egos and stuff, you know, when he got tired and he checked out of the house and then he lived, you know, in a pool house somewhere, not too far from us, but it took us a while to figure out where he was, you know, because he just really got tired of being in that setup. And then he was just like, yeah, he was out. And then it was that sort of thing that after you've lost your job as a man, you know, and if you've been up top, you know, it feels like you become too big to be small. And I feel now that I've grown up, you know, and you check it out in retrospect, you understand what he was going through at the time, you know, where it's like, you know, he's had a great life, and all of a sudden he has to, and he's not able to get a job on that level anymore. And then he tries for a long time and then he just stopped trying. So in fairness, it wasn't like, you know, he was crazy, but it's also some of those things that, you know, your ego as a man can get in the way from you actually, you know, knowing that you might sometimes need to start from scratch. You know, you might sometimes just have to do what you need to in the moments that you find yourself, you know, and then re-identify with who you are and where you are, but don't let it get to your person. But I think my dad didn't do well with that. And so he never went back to a job. And so we had the difficult life, and then my mom was breadwinner for that long, and it was really, really hard. We spent a lot of time in fights, you know, physical fights, you know, that's how, you know, I grew up until he passed in 97. You know, and when he passed in 97, my mom was posted to Abuja, and then I was trying to get into University of Lagos, and my brother was in IMT in Ugu, and my sister was still going to university in Abia State in Umuahia. So the four of us were pretty much in different parts of Nigeria at the time, you know, and I was 17. And at the time it just felt like ridiculous for you to be living by yourself in Lagos. But my mom had looked for someone to live with me and didn't find anyone, so she's like, you have to do this yourself. You have to start figuring this out yourself. So at the time we were all scattered in Nigeria: Lagos, Abuja, Abia State, Enugu. And then eventually we would find time to meet up as a family. And then the years that followed after that, my mom would show up in Lagos to see us. At the time, it was like twice a year, but then it went down to like once a year, when it was like Christmas seasons, and she'll come home to see the kids. And then sometimes she couldn't make it for Christmas. But she was doing all of this because, she was raising 3 kids, and she was, doing her best to keep us alive, basically. But whilst I was in University of Lagos, I had joined the fellowship, I had met some great people, I'd started doing the music full time. And then I was half-heartedly doing stage plays, with a campus fellowship called TRF, the Rock Foundation Mission, which was affiliated to House on the Rock, basically. And so I was doing all this music, and becoming a bit popular at University of Lagos. But then when I got to doing the stage plays, after the first one I did for TRF, I did it with Dozie Atuyi. It was called Rhythm of the Black Man. I feel like you'd remember that. So when we started doing that, then it kind of started shaping me up into, what looked like what I was going to do. But I'll be honest with you, at the time, as at year 2, I was just doing it because these were the things that I had become involved in. I wasn't exactly sure that this was going to be my life's trajectory. It was just this is what we're doing now, so that's what we're doing. But I have to say that Dozie Atuyi was probably the one person who defined it for me, because he said to me in clear terms that you have to think about the fact that you combine communication with the gift of singing and the gift of acting and, just a persona, and that he just thinks that this is where I'm supposed to be. And nobody had said it to me like that before. So up until year 3, I was just doing it because this was what I was doing. But by year 3, Dozie Atuyi said that to me in clear terms, and I just knew that, okay, so this was what I was supposed to be, riding with, basically. And so at the time, I thought maybe I should switch over from what I was studying, marine sciences, and maybe get a degree in mass communication or something, at the time, that's what I thought, but then it was like, look, just study it out and then figure out what you want to do after. So I graduated from Unilag, and at the time, even though my mom had let me do all the things I was doing in school, in terms of now I was doing plays and we're traveling to Port Harcourt and Abuja, and I was doing concerts and we're going to different cities. And my mom was letting me do all of this, and as of year 2, my second semester, I was actually going to defer the semester exams because we had this opportunity to go to the UK to stage a play, So my mom was cool. Like, it was weird. I didn't know how to tell her, but I told her, and she was like, look, if it's worked out this way, I don't want to be the one to tell you not to go, So after that conversation with my mom, I kind of knew that, okay, at this point, it means I can tell my mom anything that I want to do, and she'd probably be cool with it, So by the time I was graduating, she was now like, okay, so what are you really going to do with your life, And so I was hoping that something along these lines that would be much bigger than what I was doing would come along, just so that it could put me, in the right space. And that happened. There was a reality TV show. It was called Amstel Malta Box Office, and they were doing their second edition at the time. And I didn't believe those reality TV shows. I thought they were all like scams. It's like, yeah, you go in there and they already know who the winner is, so what's the point? But it was a friend of mine, Bankole Williams, who actually, said, look, he thought it was a good idea for me to, just give it a shot, basically. And I did. And I won. And I made my first, chunk of change, and I won my first car, and then there was this whole acting career ahead of me, basically, So that's where the real challenge started, because now you have a brand new car that I never had before. They gave me 2.5 million that I'd never seen before. and so the career felt real to me, but I never handled this kind of money before, or this kind of, attention, and it's just like, okay, so this is brand new. So what are we going to do? And then on top of that, I was still super hung up on doing the music for sure, because, I thought the music was the thing that I was supposed to be doing. So I was, trying to figure out from the life perspective, how to survive, especially also because I had a 1-year contract that forbade me from acting any film with anyone until I did the main film that was attached to the brand. And that would take about a year. But that 1-year window was the window that you were like hot cake at the time. So it felt like it was the time to sort of jump on it and get yourself circulating. But then it's like you have this contract and you can't do anything. And so people are reaching out to you and say, oh, we want you to do this. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it. So I was having the initial crisis of, figuring out the whole acting and singing thing. But I was also having the crisis of, coming into this new life, getting some new money, having a car that I needed to maintain, having to do an overhaul of my wardrobe, because now you go to all these events and stuff, and I didn't know what to do with myself, So this was, it was brand new. But I have to say that, sometimes when you think about your upbringing, it sort of helps you, at an early stage, start putting certain things into perspective. You know what I mean? Because then you realize, okay, so why are you really here? And fortunately, I also have to say that at the time, social media was not this big. So there were less distractions. And because you and I have been at this thing forever, like we've been here for a really long time, So the distractions were not as much as they are right now, because right now it's like there's all the social media and, but it was Facebook, and Facebook was still growing as well, So
MySpace, High Five. There was MySpace.
High Five, exactly. And there was Yahoo Messenger, So these were the things that we knew, but it was like not a lot of pressure, So at that point, you kind of had to be honest. And some truth I have to tell you, I lost a chunk of that money. And I lost a chunk of that money because when I sort of realized that, look, see, this is a new lease on life, people are looking at you differently. So after this contract is done, you still need to have money to spend, because now you're not working, but they're giving you 2.5 million. So somehow you need to be alive by the time this contract is done. So I invested a chunk of that change. I mean, I gave my mom some money. We did an overhaul in the house. I gave my siblings some money. I spent some money on myself. But a chunk of it I actually invested. And at the time, there were all these interesting money doublers that were circulating Nigeria at the time. But I invested in a hedge fund. And it's weird that I even feel like I had the sense enough to do that, but I did this also because, and I have to underscore that I had, I guess I surrounded myself with people who had good sense. And they were not just my mates. There were also people who were much older than I was. So there were people who had seen versions of life that I'd never seen. And so they were able to point me in the right direction. So I remember it was Pastor Okechukwu who actually told me about the hedge fund, and it was like, look, you might want to put some of your money here. And I was getting like 100 grand returns every month. So I figured, okay, if I'm under contract for 1 year and I'm not making any money, but I then put this amount of money and they pay me out 100 every month for the next year, then I can survive. And I put it also in an oil firm. It was called Nospetco. I don't know if you remember this. And I was getting paid like 40,000 every month. So between both investments, I was making 140 to keep me alive, But then all these doublers, money lenders and money doublers in Nigeria, they were circulating, and a ton of people were pulling out their monies from fixed deposits in banks, and the banks were noticing. And so the banks raised a lot of talk, and the federal government came in and clamped down on everyone, including the hedge funds. And so that's how all the money vanished. And that's how, I think one I got paid out maybe like 5 months, the other got paid out like 8 months, and the initial capital was gone. So now I'm back to the point where you're done with your contract and you have no money. But then you have this new lease on life. You're driving a brand new Chevy Optra. You have to look nice. You have to go to all these events, but you have no money. And then the spark is wearing off because they've waited to work with you for 1 year, but nobody can, you know. So at that point, I had to ask myself a fresh question. What's going to happen? I started thinking after 2, 3 years of doing maybe like 2 films, I decided to go to school. I thought, okay, maybe I should go to an acting school since I didn't study it in the university. And so I started talking to people. This is what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the money to go. And I wanted to go to the US. You know, it was New York Film Academy, and I wanted to go to the LA campus. And so I talked to a ton of people who dissuaded me. I tried to raise the money. I tried the program in June. It didn't work out. And then there was a discounts program in December, and I was talking to people. And then little monies were trickling in. And I remember a really good friend of mine, an Egbon of mine, he's also a pastor. He told me to go and look for a 9 to 5. Like, he just told me, after I pitched this whole going to school thing, he said to me, you know, and I'm saying this to underscore that sometimes even the people around us have the best intentions. They're men of God, you know, they see the future of many, but sometimes they're not always right, you know, sometimes. And so this is why it's important to underscore that sometimes you have to check everything everyone is telling you in a box and really ask yourself the real questions about what you want to do with yourself and be really true to yourself. Because this is someone who, like, he had been in my life for a long time. He was one of the people who made sure that I didn't suffer too much in the period. Because, you know, you get these phone calls, oh, what are you doing, blah, blah. Well, send me your account number, and then you'll get a package. And those monies kept me alive when I was working, you know. But he told me to look for a 9 to 5. But the turnaround came when I went to apply for a US visa, and I got the US visa. And then he paid for my flight to the US and gave me some pocket change. But I have to tell you that, Bouquie, when I got to LA, I was doing an 8-week course, and I was staying there for an extra month. So I was supposed to be there for 12 weeks. But I got into LA with $800. And my rent for the first month was $600. So, and this was myself and a friend of mine, Vanessa. She was studying filmmaking. She had maybe like 900 as well. So we both had money for our first month's rent, but that's all we had. And then the change was, yeah, we'll just go and figure this thing out. You know, we'll get in there, we'll study, and then somewhere along the 12-week period, we'll call home or call someone and say, look, we're out of money, you need to help us. So this is what we decided to do. But we did it because we just thought it was the right thing to do, you know, and we went with the little signs that we saw around us that suggested that this was what we're supposed to be doing for now. And it was very difficult. Boxing Day, December 26th, 2009, myself and Vanessa had an oatmeal raisin cookies and canned Coke. That's all we could afford. Now, I'll tell you this, they came to kick us out of the hostel we were staying in. When we checked in, they told us that we were, and again, I'm saying these stories because I need people to understand that, look, there have been real practical things that have happened. We were sleeping, and then this guy comes and says, oh, it's time for you guys to check out. And we're like, no, this is not what we agreed. What we were told was we will come at the end of every month to make payment. And it was like, okay, but it's the end of the month. We're like, no, we checked in here on the 28th. And so we thought the end of the month was the 31st of December, but the cycle was every 28 days. And at the time, between Vanessa, you know what this is like. And at the time, between Vanessa and I think we had $150 in our Bank of America accounts. And then the guy says, well, either way, you still have to check out because they already booked the spaces for people who were checking into the hostel that day. So we packed up, and they got us an 8-man room in a hostel with 4 bunks. And so we moved in there. What would help us this period after we, drank our 1 Coke and oatmeal raisin cookie there was a guy who was the manager of the place. It was originally Ivorian. My friend who went to the same school the year before had told us about this hostel, which was why we took the place. And so when we checked in, we had introduced ourselves to him, you know, and every now and again he'll say, oh, how do you like your room? And we're like, yeah. But it was just like, we paid what we could afford for. So I don't know why you're asking this, you know. So that evening when we were kicked out and moved to a different place and we were down to $40 between the both of us, he came that evening because he managed two other hostels and this was on Hollywood Boulevard. He managed two other hostels in West Hollywood. So he came into Hollywood Boulevard to the hostel there and he came to, you know, check in on us. And I was just like, oh, how you guys doing? So I'm looking at this guy and thinking, you have to be ridiculous. Like, your guys just kicked us out and you're here being friendly. Oh, see, how's it going? Oh, how's your room? And I'm just like, really? You don't know that you kicked us out of our room? But turns out that he didn't know. And so we went ahead and told him what happened. And then this guy who we just met put us in his car, took us to In-N-Out Burger, bought us food. We had food first. Yeah, took us to West Hollywood, showed us the other two hostels, took us to his office and said, so what do you want me to do for you? And we're like, well, you tell us what you can do for us. And then he gave us a private room with a queen bed and a bunk. So 3 beds, your own microwave, your own fridge, your own space. And he told us to pay $1,000 between both of us. We were paying $1,002 for bunk spaces, but now he asked us to pay one. And he said, whenever you have the money, pay. So for the next 8 weeks in LA, we were living off the graces of this Ivorian guy who was the manager of the place, who was just great to us, all because we wanted to get a diploma for acting, you know. So we did that, came back to Nigeria, and then things sort of picked up. So it's like everybody sort of heard, oh, this guy went to school in the US and came back. Okay, so he seems like he's really after this thing. Yeah, go ahead.
How did you pay? How did you pay?
So, be honest with you, a lot of friends chipped in. People like Lolo Eremi, I don't know if you remember her, but Lolo was also one of the people who kept me alive in those periods, because Lolo was working with Airtel at the time, and Lolo just would call me and be like, do you have money? You know, and then so Lolo looked out for me. There were just a bunch of people. There's a friend of mine whose name I'm trying to remember because I really wanted to say her name. She also chipped in. There were just like 50K here, 30K here, and all the money was coming together. And so somehow the $2,000 to pay for that day showed up, but I hadn't figured out my travel. I hadn't figured out all those things. It was just like, at least if I pay the fees, then I could use that to say to people that this is what I'm trying to do, you know, because I just thought it was important. So that's how I paid. A bunch of friends just always, you know, and that's what told me that this time it was going to happen, you know, because all these monies just, you know, showed up from different people basically. So it was just the bunch of friends who were just, you know, tipping in and stuff. So that's how
You're
I paid
very
for that.
blessed. You're blessed because LA has a way of baptizing you into the system by being homeless. No, for real, by being homeless. I promise you, you have to
Right.
be homeless or almost homeless. And then you see most of these guys on the streets, they actually came to do work and then they got into drugs. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. You know, and then I have to say that the other thing that saved me in LA, which is why I will forever be grateful to Vanessa and Zediego, she also did painting arts, but she had an interesting angle to it. She had a collective, so she'd get all these artists, they would paint, she would organize an exhibition, and then she would get investors, you know, to sponsor the exhibition. And that year, because we left in November of 2009, that year she had organized one area in the year and MTN had sponsored, but MTN hadn't come through with their commitments. So it turns out that while Vanessa and I were suffering badly in LA and we were really hungry, it turns out, I think it was in January or so, that she got the phone call that the money was ready. And so they paid in the money to Vanessa. And this was after, you know, Mohammed Lamin had let us, you know. And so Vanessa basically took care of me for the next 8 months. I mean, I tried to reach out to friends because you didn't want it to be like you're leeching off of someone. But again, she saw that this was either you take care of me or I die, basically. So, so Vanessa took care of me for pretty much the remainder of the 8 weeks. I feel like I probably still owe her like, I don't know, 250 grand or something, because I said, look, I'll pay this back. I'll pay this back. I'll pay this back. So I still haven't gotten to paying it. With Vanessa, if you're here, I still will,
Nah, man,
So,
Vanessa giving you. It's all baptism of fire.
no, it was crazy. Like, so that was a really, really rough period. But it was funny because when we came back to Nigeria, like, I know things changed for me. Like, people just took notice, and then people really started, hiring me, and things just started picking up. But I have to say that I came to another crossroads where it was like I was becoming, I guess, because I had tasted a bit of what the scenery was like internationally, and I guess meeting other filmmakers from across the world there, I wanted to do more. It sort of challenged me in a different, direction. And so when I came back, I was grateful for the work, really grateful, because I was getting to meet all these people who had been accomplished, in careers and things. I was working with great people. But then I also wanted to go back to LA. And so I started plotting how to go back to LA, to UCLA, actually. I was going to do a 1-year program. I was going to do the optional practical training, and then get some sort of internship for 6 months. So the plan was, if you go there and you're out there for 2.5 years, you figure how to plug yourself into the industry. And I have to underscore, I wasn't planning to marry anybody, so that wasn't the plan. The plan was just try to work out connections in that period and see what would happen. But then AMVCA was doing their inaugural award ceremony, and I had been nominated that year, and I was very surprised. And I remember the film that I was nominated for, when the producer, Blessing Effium, was trying to hire me after I'd done the audition. I walked in on a conversation. They were having a conversation, but they didn't know I was coming. So I was walking in, and Franco Shodi had said to Blessing, what's the problem? Like, if this boy is good at the thing, if you like his audition, why don't you just hire him? Because at the time, Blessing had given the script to the other accomplished actors and was waiting to hear back from them, but they were not getting back in touch, and so she had her first choices. I wasn't her first choice. I was recommended by my friend Chelsea Eze, and I went in for the audition, and so as I was walking into that conversation, Franco Shudi was telling Blessing, says, look, I don't understand. Like, why are you wasting time? If they're not getting back in touch with you, then work with this boy. If you're content with what he's done, then I don't see why you should. I just walked in and I heard him saying that. I was like, okay, well, I hope she listens. And she listened. Exactly. And that's the film that I was nominated for, Two Brides and a Baby. And it turns out that I won. And I have to say, 2012 just sort of changed the perspective. Like, people across Africa knew me now, and clearly not on the level that a Genevieve or a Patience Ozokwa, no, but this was new light for me. And so that put a pause on my UCLA plan. I just put, because now I was getting a different type of attention, But for me, it was important that, the work was what was getting me ahead, because I do know that, our industry right now has a tendency to be, probably more focused on, being, what's the word, more theatrical. And when I say more theatrical, we're more about, let's pose, and we're focusing a lot less on the work, and doing it well. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's also part of the things that give people the wrong idea about how to come into this business. People want to be stars. People want to walk the red carpet. People want to, people want their pictures taken. And I really feel like this thing is bringing a lot of people into the industry that have no business being in this
Have no
business.
business being there.
They
Yeah.
have no business being here. So they're coming in on the wrong motives, because it's like you see all these people on the red carpet and you're just like, yeah, I want to be an actor as well. But a lot of people are coming in for the wrong reasons, which is why it's important for me to say that I was glad that, I was not the most fashionable guy. I did my best, but at least the work was getting me ahead, basically. And I guess also because I focused a lot on trying to see what was happening outside Nigeria as well, it gave me a certain degree of knowledge that sort of, always, put me in a position where it's like, even though you've not seen me do 500 films, if you get the chance to work with me or you get the chance to have a conversation with me, you'd probably be able to tell, this boy kind of knows what he's talking about. Oh, okay, he seems to know what he wants or what he's doing, And so that's sort of always, but it would probably always take people getting in touch with you first. So I just knew that my path was a much slower path. It's like a slow burn, and all of that. And then, I mean, so far, things have been pretty good. I have, walked into really great circles, but I do find that, as far as it goes with, this journey that we're all taking in terms of what we're pursuing, it's a real slow burn. I'm in a different season of my life right now, and people are constantly asking me, Lucy, where are you? Like, are you still working? Like, what's happening? Like, we don't see you anymore. Like, what's going on? But I sometimes feel like people forget that, there are very many aspects of your life. Your career is one of them, but also your personal well-being is one of them. Your marriage is one of them. Your family is one of them. And what happens is that as far as this journey goes, you have to be able to figure what stage or what phases in life you're in and the things that, take forefront at some of those stages, such that even though I know that there's a lot of movies going on and people reach out and like, oh yeah, I'll see. And this is the thing with our industry. It's like once you're out of sight, you're almost out of mind sort of thing. It can be tricky, but then as an individual, you have to be able to be honest with yourself in terms of where you are and what your pursuits currently are and what you're trying to do. I'm still in the business, but I'm just in a different season of my life, basically. So I don't
Wow.
know. I don't know how much I've covered, in terms
Oh my
of.
gosh, you covered a lot. So, what season are you now?
Right. So, I mean, to begin with, I'm a married guy. I have a wife.
Hey, Ozzy the Great.
No. And I say that simply to say that, we've done long distance for a while. I did meet her before she left Nigeria. Um, but then after you get married, then you're doing long distance for a while, and it's not really a true reflection of what your dynamics are. And so at some point you kind of have to work out what the dynamics are because it's a fresh relationship, especially in the dynamics of marriage, and there are many kinks to work out. And so we had to work out those kinks. And you kind of have to know your partner a little better and let your partner know you a little better. And that requires spending time together. Outside of that, I have the opportunity, to get and I guess this is, well, because of marriage, but which is the advantage of being married to who I'm married to, but also because of work, I have the opportunity to get a different passport, which sort of helps you, which is one of the things that you know what I mean, which sort of helps you as far as, and I guess this is also one of the interesting aspects of, seasons of your life where you realize that if you are pursuing a career in a certain direction, sometimes or many times having a Nigerian passport alone can be a difficult thing. And I speak from experience. And Bouquet, you know exactly what I'm talking
And
about.
listen, man, I know exactly what you're talking about. They pull you out of the
It's,
line. It's different. It's different. Yeah.
it's
But
very
thanks be
different.
to the
And,
Lord.
I'm just, again, and this is not to discriminate because I don't want people coming back and saying, okay, so you're saying, like, no, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, look, this is the concept of being or having the outlier effect in your life. People will always have some sort of advantage, and you're learning that if you have an advantage, take it, because guess what? It's going to probably speed up the process for you, but never be ashamed to say that you had an advantage. You know what I'm saying? So I have
Mm.
the advantage of, being married to someone who can give me a different passport. And what that does for me is, I don't have to apply for visas so much anymore when that happens. I can go to film festivals a lot easier. I don't have to worry so much about visas. And for some of the auditions I've done, I know that some of the issues have been the fact that I have a green passport. It's easier to just hire someone who has an American passport or a Canadian passport. And so, when you realize that, and here's the thing, I have to put in the time to be able to get that passport. So I'm at
Mm.
that season where it's like, I have to make sure that, I'm happy with my family and with my wife, and that some of the decisions I'm making for work, will put me in a position where, you ultimately know that. And here's the thing, that if you become successful outside of Nigeria, Nigeria will still celebrate you.
Nigeria,
Nigeria will embrace you. Like the Nigerians,
Nigeria.
they will. Like they will be
But
grateful that you are
but in
putting us on the
Nigeria,
map.
OC, but in Nigeria, you'll be all slim. They will say,
Yes, no,
no,
but
no, you know, go out. I remember. No.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely right. And I guess I just came to terms with the fact that, for some people, a prophet is probably going to be without honor in his own home. It's not going to be like that for everyone, which is why, again, I say that people need to know, what their own specific trajectories are. And I found that as an actor, I say this, with all humility. I know that I'm great at my job. I know, you know, but I also know that
We
I
know
don't.
too. We know too. We
No.
know too.
But I just know that I'm not as celebrated as I think I should be. And this is not me thinking of myself higher than I ought to be. But I guess comparatively speaking, when you sort of look at what some people, what they get in terms of accolades or what they're accorded, and you look at yourself, you're like, well, this is what it is, you're probably not going to be as celebrated, especially because you figure that you're playing the long game, basically. And if you're playing the long game,
Marathon.
yeah, you're on the marathon. So it's going to take some time. And so you have to make certain decisions, that will be beneficial for the long game. And so for me, I'm here, I'm happy with my wife, we're building our dynamics more and more, we're getting to know more of each other, we're having family time, and I'm spending the time and then, depositing for a passport. And when work kicks off, because I have to tell you, I'm getting great auditions out here. I am. Really great auditions, honestly, for
Mhm.
really great projects. And it
Is
is
that
only in
Ik Ogbonna? Is that Ik Ogbonna?
yeah.
Drop us some Nigerian flags, I beg.
Okay. Hi,
So
Auntie Catherine. I see you. Hmm. Go
why do
ahead.
you
I listen.
think though that you are not being as celebrated as you think you should be? What do you think is wrong?
I do think that, by way of the setup of our industry. Oh, there we go. IK with his Nigerian flags. Do you see that? I think,
Uh-huh.
I personally think that with the way our industry has been structured for a long time, there's a lot more attention placed on people are who have the, I guess they have the capacity or capability to be actors as well as um, big personalities. Like they're more social. And the
Okay.
reason I say that is because it's become a very important element that ties into how hiring is being done in Nigeria as well. So that I don't think that I'm the best social media person, and my colleagues will say the same. Um, I
You don't
think that
have
I
to tell
fall.
me. You don't have to tell me. We don't have to tell you how to get on live. Okay, but go ahead.
I think that, myself and I guess a bunch of people, especially because, again, you're not on Genevieve's level where Genevieve doesn't have to do any PR anymore. She is Genevieve. She's like our biggest export. So she doesn't have to do too much, or she's the kind of person, if she does one thing, everybody's like, oh my God, what did she just do? But for those of us who are still building a portfolio, it's like you have to work at it. But some of us are not wired that way. And some of us are not, we're doing our best. I do think that people like us probably need to hire people to do that. But you also have to have the money to hire people to do that. Which are things that you have to figure out where you are in the season of your career to know what is important to do, what is important, to invest money in, and what's not important to invest money in. But those people, who have a bigger profile will get more of the attention of the corporates, and corporate Nigeria
Of the
has a lot
what?
of money of the corporates, like corporate Nigeria.
Oh, I thought you said CULPRITS.
Oh no! No. Corporate
I'm just
Nigeria
kidding.
is what I
That's what
mean.
we calling them now. But go ahead. Go ahead. I just
You
had a
know,
break in confusion.
no, it's cool. And so, and it is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's important, to be able to put yourself out there as much as possible. I just do think that some of us put ourselves out there, you know, mostly with our work, minimally with social media. But then there's the people who their strengths are mostly with social media and everything. And I've obviously figured it. Most people want to see your personal life. People want to see, what you've won today, where you went to and all those things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some of us are just not wired to be people who show people where we are all the time. We show
Mm.
people once in a while. But those things stack up the numbers, and somehow translates to value as far
Mm.
as, monetizing
The
a film
business.
or,
Okay.
this business is concerned. And I get that. But like I said, so I'm not even disputing that. But like I said, some of us at some point, you will get somebody who will do that for you when it's necessary. But for the time
Mm.
being, like my Aunt Catherine said, you prioritize and figure out what's important for you right now. Because here's the
Mm.
thing, as long as God keeps all of us alive, there's time to always catch up. And here's the
Mm.
thing, as long as God keeps us alive, some of us don't have to climb every step in the stairway. Some of us will go from one step and skip four
Why?
steps. And, so it's like, I know that this is what happens. And, you just need to be comfortable. You're honest with that. This is what it is. This is who you are, and, go with it, basically.
Amen and amen. Wow.
Yeah.
Listen, personally, I think your
Uh-huh.
work speaks for you. I don't think
Thank you.
that I don't think you see yourself right, OC. We have 3 minutes more, so I'm not gonna listen, man. I think we see you. You know how, look at my eyes. I can see you, right? My eye was
Yeah.
created to see you because I can see you.
Yeah.
If I can't see myself, if I need to see myself, I need to get a mirror, right?
Right.
So it's not
Right.
every time that we see ourselves. So we are your mirror right now, and we are
Right.
mirroring back to you the fact that you are an excellent actor. Whether
Thank you.
you think somebody else, we see you as a great actor. We love you. We love
Thank
your
you.
work. We love your
Thank you so much.
originality. You
Thank you.
embody what you do. You don't just act. You know, all these movies now that people just say, don't make me angry. I will smile. And then, it's just, but listen, at the end of the day, quality will last. Let me tell you that. They might, a lot of people have all the, whistles and bells and all that. But listen, at the end of the day, you said it already.
Right.
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So if you're
really
running
not.
just for the short term, get all the accolades and pack it all in 1 year. But there's the long term. It's like Thanksgiving dinner. You cook it slow, man. You cook it slow.
Exactly.
You soak that turkey. You soak those vegetables so that when you eat it at the end of the day, it's a delicious meal. And you, my brother, for the lack of better words, are a delicious meal that has been carefully cooked, and we love you. We love you very much. We support you. And listen, man, you said something that was very key. You said that you married a woman that has another passport that gave you another. Listen, I want to marry you if you want to marry you. Public service announcement. I have another passport. So, my people, I love you. We have 19 seconds more. Thank you for coming to Bouqui'S Place. We love you so much. We're on Instagram. Show us what you're doing.
I certainly will.
Let's love you. Real, So God bless you guys. Catch the episodes on Bouqui'S Place. See ya. Peace.